Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through all that research noise and give you the stuff you can actually use. And today, we're hitting a big one, cognitive decline. It's something pretty much everyone worries about, right?
Yeah.
So we've gone through the sources to figure out, okay, how do we dodge those memory problems, keep our brain sharp as we get older?
Exactly. That's the mission. We need to look at, the basic ways the brain can get damaged. But more than that, we're pointing fingers at specific things in our diet, our environment, things you might not expect.
Yeah.
It's not just about trans fats. There's more going on.
Okay, and starting off, there's this really surprising finding in the sources. It seems the brain itself, the nervous system, it doesn't actually age or break down as fast as other parts of the body. Is that right?
That's what the research suggests, yeah. It's counterintuitive. The real issue seems to be more about losing some neurons, yes, but also structural changes that just slow down the communication. The signals don't travel as efficiently.
So if the hardware isn't necessarily failing first, what's the weak point? Where does the serious decline start?
It often starts with a breach in the main defense system, that protective barrier.
You mean the blood-brain barrier, that super selective filter between the blood and the brain, like the bouncer for your brain cells.
Pretty much, yeah. It keeps the delicate brain environment safe from the chaos of the general bloodstream. And if that barrier gets leaky, even just a little bit, that's when trouble starts. Harmful stuff can get in. Toxins, inflammation.
And that's where things like amyloid plaques, the stuff you see in Alzheimer's, come in, that accumulation.
Exactly. That buildup happens when things get past the barrier. But here's the twist, the sort of paradoxical view many specialists are leaning towards now.
Okay.
Those plaques might not just be junk piling up. They might actually be part of the immune system's response.
Wait, what? The immune system trying to help?
Sort of. It's like the brain releasing its own antimicrobial agents, think internal antibiotics trying to deal with invaders like bacteria or maybe fungi viruses that slip through the barrier.
So the plaque is the leftover evidence of the fight, the cleanup crew's residue gumming up the works.
That's a good way to put it. The body tries to fix the problem, but the fix itself, this accumulated material, ends up slowing down how neurons talk to each other.
Wow. Okay, that changes things. If the plaques are a symptom of the immune battle, focusing just on clearing plaques, maybe that's missing the root cause.
That's the huge question this raises, absolutely. You're seeing the evidence of a long fight. Once that stuff gets lodged in there, it really hinders brain function.
Okay, so compromised barrier, immune response, that's mechanism one. What's the second big way things go wrong?
The second is vascular. It's about the blood vessels, specifically damage from years and years of rapid swings in blood sugar, glucose variations.
You mean like after eating something sugary, that spike and then the crash?
Exactly. That quick rise and maybe even more importantly, the sharp fall afterwards. It messes with the function of those really tiny, delicate blood vessels in the brain.
Right, the brain needs that constant, steady supply of oxygen and blood at just the right pressure. If the vessels are getting hammered by these sugar surges and drops all the time, does that cause noticeable problems right away, or is it silent?
For most people, it's silent damage piling up for decades. You might feel tired, that afternoon crash, sure, but you probably don't realize those swings are literally changing the structure of the vessels feeding your brain.
Okay, so pulling this together for prevention, what's the immediate takeaway, the low-hanging fruit?
It's pretty straightforward based on this. Keep those brain blood vessels healthy. Avoid the big swings in blood pressure they cause, and definitely avoid those rapid blood sugar spikes and falls.
And the main dietary fix the sources point to is a low glycemic index diet, right?
Yeah.
To sort of smooth out those sugar curves after meals.
That's the foundation. Flatten that curve, stabilize the system. It reduces the wear and tear significantly. That's step one.
Right. Stabilize first. Then we can talk about the specific attackers. Which brings us to section 2. Some really surprising inflammatory triggers, starting with histamines.
Right.
And isn't that just about allergies and sneezing?
That's what we usually think, yeah. But histamine is released by mast cells. They're part of your immune system's first responders. Stress, infections, allergens all trigger them. And when histamine gets released, it makes blood vessels dilate, increases blood flow, and causes inflammation. Not just in your nose, but systemically.
And the sources link high histamine levels directly to brain issues. Like what kind of symptoms?
Oh, yeah. Mental fog is a big one. Headaches, irritability, trouble focusing. Even depression has links. It's inflammation that directly affects the nervous system.
Okay, so if we want to lower that inflammation, we need to know the foods. The list seems long. And includes some healthy stuff.
It's pretty extensive, yeah. We're talking cereals, dairy, fermented drinks like beer especially, aged yogurt, soy sauce, also foods preserved in vinegar, smoked meats or fish, peanuts, some types of seafood too.
But here's the part that really jumped out at me from the sources. The detail about leftovers.
Yeah.
That's kind of alarming.
It's a big one, especially if you meal prep. Eating the same meal over 2 or 3 days, even if it's refrigerated. The histamine levels actually increase as the food sits and ferments slightly. So day three's portion packs a bigger inflammatory punch than day one's.
Whoa. So my healthy batch cooked chili is becoming like an immune challenge by Tuesday or Wednesday. That changes everything for meal prep.
It's definitely something to be aware of. Generally, reducing histamine means focusing on fresh animal products, fresh vegetables. Think sort of paleo-ish. Interestingly, good fats like olive oil, coconut oil, and some teas might help manage the immune effects too.
Okay, so histamine acts like an allergen, causing inflammation. But it's not the only compound doing that. The sources mention oxalates next. Similar issue.
Very similar mechanism, yes. It boils down to inflammation again.
Yeah.
If your body doesn't handle oxalates well, you get symptoms much like histamine intolerance, general inflammation, maybe higher risk for autoimmune issues.
And the key foods high in oxalates. I bet there are some surprises here too.
Definitely. Beer comes up again. Also, beetroot, chocolate, coffee, and spinach, plus most other dark leafy greens.
Hold on, spinach. Dark leafy greens. Aren't those supposed to be like the ultimate health foods? Do we need to cut them out?
Well, the sources suggest awareness is key. Not necessarily total elimination for everyone, unless you know you have a problem. But it's worth knowing, especially if you struggle with chronic inflammation. High oxalic acid levels can even be a sign of an underlying gut issue, like candida overgrowth.
Interesting. That connection between gut health and brain inflammation keeps popping up. Okay, let's shift from those immune triggers. What about the more direct metabolic and chemical attackers? Back to category 2. High glycemic index foods.
Right, we touched on this with the blood vessel damage. We really need to avoid foods that cause that rapid glucose spike and crash. And it's important to distinguish. Glycemic load is just how much sugar is in something. Glycemic index is how fast it hits your blood. That speed, the index, is the real troublemaker for inflammation and aging.
And what's the immediate effect on your brain before the long-term damage? That savage lethargy the sources mentioned.
Yeah, you get that quick burst of energy, maybe feel hyper for a bit, but then comes the crash. Fatigue, inability to concentrate. Our brains evolved needing glucose, sure, about 80, 100 grams a day, but they're designed to get it slowly, steadily, maybe from breaking down fats or proteins, not from these massive, fast hits of modern carbs like potatoes or white bread.
Okay, moving on. Category 3. Trans fats. We know these are bad, mostly man-made, highly unstable. What's the specific brain damage link?
It's pretty direct. High intake is linked to poorer cognitive function, literally smaller brain volume in some studies, even in kids. One study, quite large, found people eating more trans fats remember fewer words in a memory test. Simple as that. Plus, they ramp up oxidative stress, which is basically cellular rust, a key part of aging.
Yikes. Okay, category 4. Artificial sweeteners. People grab these thinking, no sugar, no problem, right? But the sources say, not so fast.
Exactly. They seem like a good swap because they don't spike your glucose. But there's a neurotoxic potential flagged in some research. We're talking small studies, some in animals. But links pop up to increased cancer risk, maybe due to acidity changes, weight gain, surprisingly, and even concerns about bladder and brain tumors. They're not necessarily inert.
So if you really want a sweetener, what are the safer bets, according to this research?
The ones highlighted are purified stevia, the specific compound steviol, not necessarily the whole leaf and monk fruit extract. These seem to avoid the immediate negative neurological flags, though monk fruit can be pricey.
Got it. And rounding out this section, category 5, condiments and high sodium. This isn't just about blood pressure, is it? It hits the neurons directly.
Absolutely. Many processed condiments are sodium bombs, which impacts blood vessels, yes. But critically, the balance or imbalance between sodium and potassium is fundamental to how neurons fire. It creates the electrical charge they need to send signals.
And we're way off balance compared to our evolutionary diet.
Massively. The sources mentioned Paleolithic diets had something like 7 times more potassium than sodium. Today, it's often flipped. We're basically starving our neurons of the right electrical environment. So, practical tip, if your diet is high in sodium, make a conscious effort to get more potassium and magnesium, maybe through supplements, to help restore that balance.
Okay, on to the final stretch. Hidden toxins and contaminants. Category 6. Gluten. This one's controversial.
It definitely is. Gluten refers to proteins that cause clumping agglutination and are no inflammatory triggers for many people. The key warning from the sources isn't just about gluten itself, but that many gluten-free products are not the answer. They often swap gluten for other stuff that also causes clumping and inflammation. Fermenting grains with real sourdough can lessen the negative impact, but it might not solve the problem entirely for sensitive people.
Right, good clarification. Category 7, heavy metals. Subtle, but nasty.
Very much so. The link between heavy metals and neurological issues, including mood problems, is well established. Mercury, for instance, is specifically linked to depression symptoms. It just underscores, if you eat a lot of large predatory fish, you need to be mindful of that potential load and maybe think about detoxification support.
Okay, category 8. This one sounds pretty intense. Lipopolysaccharides, or LPS. Toxic bits shed by bacteria. Where are we getting these?
Yeah, LPS are basically toxic molecules from the outer walls of certain bacteria. We mainly consume them when high-carb and high-fat ingredients are mixed together. So think, most processed foods. Pastries, desserts, snack foods, it's a common contaminant in those.
And the effect is profound.
Yeah.
The sources mention animal studies.
It's quite shocking, actually. In lab settings, injecting LPS into rats is a standard way researchers induce depression-like symptoms. They use it to test if antidepressant drugs work. That tells you how powerful this substance is in directly affecting the nervous system and mood.
Wow, that's a direct chemical hit causing a psychological state.
Yep.
That really drives home the gut-brain connection.
It absolutely does. What's happening in your gut, driven by these kinds of toxins, can have an immediate and significant impact upstairs.
Okay, finally, category 9. Mold and mycotoxins.
Right. Molds produce these things called mycotoxins, and they are definitely toxic to the brain. You can get exposed through contaminated food, think grains, nuts, coffee stored poorly, or even just from living or working in a damp, moldy building.
And what do these mycotoxins do once they're in our system?
They can mess with blood flow in the brain, disrupt the autonomic nervous system, that's your body's autopilot, and even alter brainwave patterns you can see on an EEG. Symptom-wise, think insomnia, difficulty concentrating, persistent brain fog.
And there's a modern farming angle here, too.
Yeah, pesticides often kill bacteria, but they don't kill fungal spores effectively. So mold can be quite common in things like corn, other cereals, and a big one for many people.
Coffee.
Coffee. Okay, so what's the action step there? And for mold in general? For coffee lovers, look for brands that are certified tested for mycotoxins. It's becoming more common. And if you suspect you have unavoidable environmental mold exposure, you really need to ramp up your intake of antioxidants. They help your body deal with the cellular damage these toxins cause.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, this deep dive makes it crystal clear. Protecting your brain isn't just about doing crosswords. It's really about actively managing your immune system, getting serious about stabilizing blood sugar, and being pretty vigilant about reducing exposure to all these chemicals and inflammatory triggers. So many are hidden in plain sight in our daily lives.
That's the big picture, yeah. And look, don't feel overwhelmed by this list. It's a lot. The key is to just pick maybe 3 or 4 things from today that resonated with you. Maybe it's cutting back high GI foods. Maybe it's changing how you handle leftovers because of the histamine thing. Maybe it's switching your coffee brand. Start there. Make those changes. Small steps add up hugely over the long run for brain health.
Absolutely. And maybe a final thought for everyone listening. Considering that really stark connection between something like LPS and induced depression in studies, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? How much of what we label as chronic mood issues like persistent depression or irritability might actually be deeply tied to chronic inflammation, driven by what we're eating or being exposed to, rather than just being purely about brain chemistry imbalances? Something to chew on.
Definitely food for thought.
Yeah.
We'll explore more next time on The Deep Dive.